Hey, so this is just a review of current events for this week. We don't want this to replace reading the news or reading headlines or anything. This is just a roundup of what we think is important from this week and what has been spurring around headlines. And most of this stuff is probably going to show up in Extemp Draw. So we want to make sure you guys are familiar and keeping up with this stuff. Also, make sure that you're still reading the news and that you're not using this to replace that. This is just a review and just basic analysis of what's going on. Also, we want you guys to make a post down below about either an opinion or an idea or a question or an article link or anything like that that people could read, and you should read all the other comments too and make sure that you understand what's going on and that you have a good opinion of what's going on, and that or you have opinions of what's going on, and that you are ready for Extemp Job because we want you guys to excel in Extemp, and this is a really good way to help you guys. So yeah.
Start. Okay, so just recently in Obama's new upcoming trip to his in Obama's trip to Asia, he made a deal with China and the United States that it was like it's like a climate deal that regulates carbon emissions from both countries, since both countries are like major carbon emitters in the world. So what the deal tries to do, tries to limit the fuel. It tries to limit the carbon outputs by each country. Like United States has pledged to stop their carbon outputs by 26 to 28%, and they're trying to get that done by 2020. And also China has pledged to do the same, and they're trying to get that done by 2030. And also they're going to try and reach their oh, wait, no. They're going to try and reach their peak by 2030. So this deal's it's one of the major reforms in U.S. and China agreements, because they normally don't tend to cooperate much, but this trade signifies that. So it's going to lead to an all important impact in both countries' relationship with one another. Some of the topics you might get about this is like what it shows for future China and U.S. relations. Well, possible answer could be that it actually shows a much more stronger relationship between China and the United States, since they both agreed on the deal. Also, some people like Republicans especially have been giving this deal a lot of backlash, especially Mitch McConnell from Kentucky, who called the deal really unfair for the United States, and it's going to really hurt the economy, because since we regulate all these carbon emissions, some industries aren't really going to do all the same thing that they have been doing in the past. However, he also believes that China is actually going to benefit more from the deal because they don't have to do much more as the United States. So Republicans in the Senate don't really like this. So these are some of the implications of the deal that you might get topics about. So it's going to cut emissions, and it shows a lot of progress from both countries. Next, right. Okay, so everyone knows the Islamic State is pretty radical, right? So, for example, an article by CNN I just read today said that they're never going to stop they're never going to stop fighting, even if they have like one soldier left on the ground. They're never going to stop. So this just shows how radical they are. And also, is the ISIS, or the Islamic State, or just IS, has been really active during the past couple of months, where they're trying to make essentially a Muslim caliphate under the entire Middle East and North Africa. They've been making a lot of expanses into places like Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and they're also trying to get into Turkey. So the Islamic State has really radical, right? So everyone's heard about the beheadings they've done to the four journalists. You might get some topics talking about how. Actually, I'll just talk more a bit about what they've been doing. So ISIS has been condemning a lot of countries and threatening a lot of countries to attack them. A couple of these countries of being Canada and Australia, the United States, and I think it's France and England. They've been because these five countries have been trying to make alliances in order to stop ISIS. So what ISIS is trying to be doing is they're trying to get people from all these places and trying to communicate them and actually threatening these countries. Some topics you might get about ISIS is something about the drone strikes. No, sorry. Airstrikes that America has been conducting on ISIS. So a couple of implications of the airstrikes is that the Obama administration is trying to is trying to get rid of ISIS by these airstrikes. However, some of these airstrikes have not been actually. Yeah, some of these airstrikes haven't been too successful, considering they've only destroyed a small portion of the group. However, what else was I going to say? Right. So, what Obama's trying to do with ISIS is essentially that, and also Obama is trying to make deal with Iraq and in Baghdad. I think that's the capital of Iraq. So yeah. So what Obama's been trying to do in Iraq is essentially he's trying to use the military over there and trying to make stronger cooperation with U.S. and Iraqi forces in order to stop ISIS. So ISIS is clearly aware of that fact. That's why they're being so radical and doing what they're doing right now. Like, as of today, ISIS is trying to expand into places like Saudi Arabia, where there's heavy Sharia law, so they think they can essentially get the place. So, also, they're trying to make advances into small portions of Egypt. So the Iraqi forces, so what Obama is trying to do with Iraq is he's trying to make stronger cooperations with Iraq in order to make these, trying to stop ISIS forces from advancing into further territories and trying to stop this dominant Muslim caliphate.
I don't really care because it's probably.
So that's for ISIS.
Well, they need shifting of teams. That means someone's getting fired.
Okay, so the next topic we're going to talk about Russia and Ukraine. So everyone knows that Russia annexed Crimea because they felt it was part of their territory and they had people of Russian descent over there. However, it got a lot of spark by the international community because they felt that it was an illegitimate acquisition of territory. So by this actions, ever since then, a lot of countries have been condemning Russia, and a lot of people have been putting sanctions on Russia. A couple of examples being the European Union, who've actually put sanctions on Russian gas. They put sanctions on Russian gas, and also countries like the United States have also tried to kick Russia out of the G8 summit, which is now called the GN, right? So it's about the G7 or the G8 formerly is now actually known as a group of countries technologically advanced countries who kind of cooperate, and one of the 8 powerful technologically advanced countries. They discuss topics and stuff. So Russia's out of that group, and so one of the implications of being this deal, I mean, I personally don't feel it influences Russia too much, just because they have another domination who they can look up to. It's called China. China and Russia are kind of like BFFs in the international community because China and Russia, during Russia's vote to annex Crimea, China is one of the main countries of the P5 who actually vetoed this. So, who actually no, they didn't veto it. They were neutral towards it. So they didn't really feel any much. So what Russia and China have tried to be doing after people have put sanctions on Russia is they've tried to be making stronger alliances with China and Russia's deals such as energy and military and stuff like that. So China and Russia have been gaining a lot of influence. And also Ukraine has also been trying to get rid of their reliance upon Russia and focus more towards Western ideology. Their president Petro Poroshenko has actually been trying to be more west than looking more towards east. So so they've a lot of people have been trying to condemn Russia because of these acquisitions, and they've also been putting a lot of sanctions on Russia, which I feel they haven't had much of an impact on them. Other people might feel something else. So that's for Russia and Ukraine. Okay, so the last topic is Iran's nuclear deal. So an update about the nuclear deal. Although it is a bit old, like 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, this is when they started doing this deal. However, there's been a lot of news recently that Iran has not been able to cooperate much with the United States and any other countries in order to curb their nuclear deals. In fact, John Kerry is recently in Iran sometime this week, and he's actually trying to get Iran to open up their trying to let a couple of UN, I think 5 UN analysts and people who've been researching this kind of stuff wanted to go into Iran to check it out, but they were rejected 10 or 15 times over the past three or 4 months. So since they've been rejected a lot, you might get a lot of topics about if Iran's going to actually follow through with the nuclear deal. But there's been a lot of action in the news saying that how they're not focused more towards they're not really open to this, although they are trying to say that it's more for protection. They're saying there's not been much action from Iran to say that they have a nuclear weapon in their place. So there's going to be topics talking about what can America do if Iran, no, sorry, there's going to be a lot of topics talking about how Iran is somehow more, what's the word? If Iran will actually go through with a nuclear deal. However, I mean, considering their actions, I'd say they wouldn't, just because they've been rejecting a lot of people to investigate their place. That means they've obviously got something to hide, right? So also their president is. However, on the other hand, also, their president talks more with Obama or any other U.S. president than anyone has done in the past. So, Obama is actually trying to make close relations with Iran because he wants to use Iran essentially to somehow employ their troops into Iraq territory to combat ISIS. So these issues kind of intertwine. So Obama actually wants to make stronger relations with Iran's president. So, in addition to ISIS, and also he wants to do this. He wants to make stronger relations with the president in order to curb trying to get them open to showing if they have like nuclear weapons in their place.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about midterms, which is our first topic for domestic affairs. Now, generally in non-physics temp, you're going to probably have domestic affairs, so these are important to listen to.
So, just to start off with, the voter turnout for midterms has been the lowest in 72 years. The voter turnout was approximately like 36 point something percent according to the New York Times. So you can mention how like the turnout wasn't that high in your speeches if you need to.
So the results of this is actually a GOP-controlled Senate and a GOP-controlled House. So, and also a lot of the gubernatorial elections we did win over with GOP candidates. So a lot of people have really like a lot of speculations that the GOP has too much control. However, there's actually a lot of effects why Democrats shouldn't be worried about this. For example,
President Obama.
yeah, he has veto power. So with him, again, the GOP in Congress, they can't really make any rules without his approval. So
Yeah,
again, they're
so
not.
like the GOP controlled House may be like, okay, we're gonna pass some bills against Obamacare, like decrease funding, but Obama is always in turn gonna just veto it, and they're not gonna be able to reach the 2/3 amount to override the veto because the Republicans don't have that much power yet.
Also, Senator Ted Cruz, people still have to deal with him. So, again, not anything against him, but again, he is very happy about this, and he makes a lot of like big statements that are actually very controversial. And a lot of these have people like falling out of the Republican Party because of these different views that he's portraying.
Also, you can use like some funny quotes from him if you want for your intro.
Yeah, because he has a lot. Also, it puts Republicans in the light. So again, this is showing any little thing that Republicans are going to do is going to be highlighted. So again, Democrats don't have to worry about this as much because anything that Democrats are going to do, or anything Republicans are going to do, it's going to be highlighted. So that includes achievements and failures. Also, so again, they're on similar terms to the president. Also, Joe Biden is actually still major in the Senate, not any other Republicans, so that's important. And also, on a side note, in the gubernatorial elections in Texas, Greg Abbott actually won, and he's a Republican, as opposed to Wendy Davis, who was a Democratic candidate. And he was about 20 points over Wendy Davis, so it wasn't a very close election. Now, in the future elections, Mary Landrieu and the other. Hold on, somebody is at the door. I'm back. Okay. Anyways, so it was just Nitty. So again, in future elections, such as Mary Landrieu, actually tied with the Republican candidate in Louisiana, and of course, it looks like it's going to be in Mary Landrieu's favor. However, she has been saying a lot of very controversial, like people have been calling them racist statements. So people, again, this might be a downfall for her, but at the same time, she's been winning in the past, so she probably will win again. But they actually did tie, so they have to redo this election. Now, some of the ballot initiatives were things such as immigration rules, Obamacare rules, women equality, paycheck equality, things like that were big topics, so you should research those a little bit deeper because you might get a topic about those because, again, these things were major issues when brought up in the midterms elections. And also, some of the key players are people like Mitch McConnell, who's actually now the Senate Minority Leader, and he's speculated to be the Senate Majority Leader eventually, and he's currently holding positions in Kentucky. Also, Mary Landrieu has been big in the news, and of course for Texas, you should keep an eye out for Greg Abbott because he is now our new governor, and John Cornyn is a senator, I believe, and we have who else is there? Who else is there?
Like Rand Paul from.
Oh yeah, and Rand
Senator
Paul.
Rand Paul from.
Senator Rand Paul. So those people, since we do live in Texas, a lot of those people might be talked about in topics. So you should
And one of the
definitely
biggest
research that.
One of the biggest surprises about the midterms was that like the House Majority Leader Eric Cantor from Virginia lost because usually he was untouchable and he had like his foe or like his enemy, the person who was running against him, was very like less known than him.
Wait, was he Republican or Democrat? Yeah. So again, this was a Democratic win, which didn't happen a lot, but it did in this case. Also, you should just keep an eye out for basically more results of this. Again, we only touched on a few because there were so many, but yeah. So, anyways,
Hey, talk about immigration.
next. Okay, so now another main issue is drugs.
Yeah. So
Or-
adding on to the elections, whenever we had the midterm elections, 2 more states legalized marijuana. So voters in states such as Alaska, Oregon, Washington D.C. had ballot measures to see on who wanted marijuana or not. In all three states, voters approved marijuana, and for example, in Oregon, 54% of plans to create a commercial regulatory system. There's 54% support the plan to create like a commercial regulatory system for the sale of marijuana and distribution because they think it's going to be a big deal and affect the economy a lot because a lot of people can make money off of that. Also, Alaska did the same, and in Washington D.C., it was 65% who approved that, and that new measure is going to allow anyone over the age of 21 and over to possess up to 2 ounces of marijuana for personal use, and grow no more than 6 cannabis plants in their home.
So yeah, and then marijuana again, it's just overall just a big deal with midterms, and again, more states have legalized. Now with meth, it's been a big issue. Again, people have been talking about how the government hasn't been regulating this and how it's becoming too big of a problem and just spinning out of control. And what's making it even worse actually is a lot of to go along with immigration is a lot of
They don't let you search.
a lot of different shut up. A lot of different people that are coming in from again South America. A lot of these things like the drug lords are bringing a lot of meth, and again, it's really tipping an imbalance. And again, meth is just becoming more and more of a major problem in the United States. So again, you might see talk about this. Probably not, but you might. So keep an eye out for meth and things to talk about. Okay, so now net neutrality. This has been another big issue lately in the news, and probably one of the biggest recently. So you're probably going to see something about this in Extemtra. So net neutrality actually is just the principle that internet service providers and government should treat all data on the internet equally, not discriminating or charging differently by user, content, site, platform, application, type of attached equipment, or mode of communication. So basically what's happening here is just saying the internet, everything on there should be equal. People should all have equal access to everything on the internet.
So like there can't be like private companies who like have more rights than other companies or limit websites. So there's not like it controls a monopoly of internet services that are going on in today's world.
Yeah. So again, the big issue with this is monopolies, that people are going to overtake certain businesses, and some things are going to be extra fast while other things will be extra slow, or that some things will be censored that shouldn't be censored, and etc. So again, it's a very broad topic, but there's main key points that are probably going to be asked about in Extemp. Also, yeah.
Key players.
Oh yeah. So some of the key players are
FCC.
the FCC, Barack Obama, things like that.
Internet companies.
Oh, other internet companies,
Executives from the
executives,
stuff like that.
and people like that. So you should keep an eye out and research those if you're
Mr.
confused.
Wheeler.
Just because those people will probably show up in questions. Now, again, the public's opinion on this. There's been varied ranges of what people have been talking about. For example, Ted Cruz has had very controversial topics. He's very against net neutrality. And he's been comparing it to things such as Obamacare and saying that the government shouldn't be controlling the internet, etc. So that's another just public opinion.
So, like, additionally, in talking about Republicans are also advocating that it's not in the FCC's control, and it's actually beyond the FCC's control to actually control, like, what net neutrality is and stuff like that.
So again, the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission, has been talking about this a lot. They've been talking basically just they're basically people that are controlling this. So they do have a main part. So you should look out for the FCC because chances are they'll have something important to say.
Also, like companies such as AT&T are like making decisions on not like expanding their programs because they're not going to know what's going to happen next on what the policy is going to be. So they're not sure if whether they're going to benefit on what action is going to happen because there's no action yet. So we're most probably going to get like a firm decision by the end of the end of 2015.
Yeah, this has actually just been a really extensive debate. So it's probably going to last a lot longer until next year almost. And basically, the biggest debate overall is just whether it should be required by law and whether the government should have control. So look out for net neutrality because it's probably going to be asked. Now on to Ebola. Okay, so of course everyone knows about Ebola. It's just been a big topic recently in the news. Again, just as a refresher, things that you have to keep in mind when doing a speech is that Ebola is spread through direct contact of bodily fluids and a person that transmits Ebola has to show symptoms. Again, it's not airborne, so that's not a worry. But however, states such as New York and New Jersey have actually issued quarantines, and these quarantines are actually very opposed to by a lot of people because they're very immoral and the conditions people are put in are very unjust and criminal-like. For example, the woman in New York actually got out of hers because she petitioned against it and she filed some court orders and she was found to be basically not infected and she went on a bike ride, as you probably know, and she was found to be uninfected, so she didn't have to stay in her quarantine, so that wasn't a major issue. Currently, there actually are troops in Liberia and in West Africa, and they have actually, a lot of them have come back showing no symptoms. So again, that's not a big deal. And the things like quarantines, again, just aren't going to be as common because people are more educated about this. And Ebola is actually not spreading in the United States as the rate that people thought it would. So again, it's not a major concern because it's not affecting many people. And the people who are and have been infected have actually been treated or they have passed away. But in general, people are actually treated. So that's pretty much all for Ebola right now. It's not a major concern. So you might see something, you probably will see something on it, but it's not a major concern.
As
so
long
don't
as you know like
over-stress
the
about
pros
it.
and cons
Yeah.
and like the travel regulations, you should be fine.
And also, if you didn't know, people are actually checking for symptoms as people come off planes. So again, it is being regulated a lot. So it's not a major concern, but the effects that it could have, if not handled properly, are very major.